All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we're taking a look at something that really I think is going to resonate with a lot of our listeners.
Yeah.
And it has to do with some pretty significant implications, I think, for workplaces everywhere.
Mm,
But especially when we're talking about federal agencies,
right.
we're going to be looking at the Trump administration's directive that essentially required federal workers to report any attempts to kind of like disguise DEI programs,
Oh, wow.
diversity, equity, and inclusion programs.
Interesting.
And our main source here is a really fascinating article from The Hill.
Okay.
It's titled, Federal Workers Ordered to Report Efforts to Disguise DEI Programs or Face Consequences.
Consequences in quote.
Yeah, consequences in quotes. And that's what I think is going to
Yeah.
be the most interesting part of this whole thing.
For sure.
So, I mean, right off the bat, this directive had a lot of people worried.
I bet.
And, I think understandably so.
Yeah.
So we're going to unpack kind of what it said, what it meant,
Mhm.
and the potential impact.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think a good place to start would be just to define what exactly this directive was asking for.
Yeah, I think what's so interesting about this directive is how it uses language almost to target these programs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it taps into a larger political debate around
Right.
DEI initiatives.
Yeah. Yeah, and for our listeners who maybe aren't super familiar with all the ins and outs of government jargon,
Sure.
could you break down what exactly the directive was asking for?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, what were they looking for?
So essentially, the Office of Management and Budget, or the OMB,
Okay.
under the Trump administration,
Mm-hmm.
directed federal agencies to identify any DEI programs that were using what they considered to be alternative terms or phrasing
Okay.
as a way to kind of obscure their true purpose.
So, like, instead of saying diversity.
Exactly. So,
basically,
yeah, they might use terms like opportunity or inclusion.
Oh, interesting.
And so that was kind of what they were looking for.
And do you think that that was intentional? Like, do you think that there was this effort to hide DEI programs?
Well, that's
Or could it be that
a really...
it was just different interpretations of language?
It's the million-dollar question, right? It's hard to say for sure what the motivation was behind every single program.
Right.
Some people argue that using broader language like opportunity can actually be more effective
Oh, interesting.
in achieving diversity
Okay.
because it focuses on just creating a level playing field for everyone.
Gotcha.
But then others might say that being very explicit about diversity is necessary to directly address historical inequalities.
Right. And I think that's kind of
So
the heart of the matter.
Yeah. There's definitely two sides to this.
Yeah.
For sure.
And the directive also mentioned potential consequences.
Yes.
What were some of those consequences?
Well, the article doesn't really get into specifics.
Okay.
But I think we can imagine a range of possibilities, right? On the one hand, you could have programs losing funding or, being restructured.
Right.
And then on the more extreme end, there could even be personnel actions taken against employees involved,
Wow. Yeah.
like being fired.
Potentially. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing that's so scary, right? Is that
Right.
that kind of uncertainty can be really chilling.
Yeah. I mean, especially for people who are working on these initiatives.
Exactly.
Because it creates this really uneasy environment. Like, you don't know if what you're doing is right or wrong.
Exactly.
And you don't know what the consequences will be.
And, it makes me think about what happened at company organization Name Redacted recently,
Oh, yeah.
where they faced a huge backlash
Yeah.
when their DEI initiatives were seen as, too woke or whatever.
Right, right.
And it makes you wonder, like, how widespread is this type of pushback?
Yeah.
What does it mean for the future of DEI?
It does. It raises so many questions.
It does. And, thinking about our listeners, I mean...
Think about your own workplace or any organizations you're a part of.
Mm.
Have you seen any instances where language has been used to either promote or downplay DEI efforts?
That's a good question.
And how did that make you feel?
Yeah, I mean, it's really thought-provoking because it shows that this issue goes beyond just semantics.
Exactly.
It really gets at, like, the power of language
Right.
to shape our perceptions and even our policies.
Absolutely.
And it makes you wonder how this is going to impact future DEI efforts, regardless of, which political party is in power.
Exactly. I think this situation really underscores the need to have these open and honest conversations
Right.
about DEI and what it means to create truly inclusive environments.
And I think it's about being mindful of the language that we're using
Yes.
and being willing to have those sometimes difficult conversations.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been a really fascinating deep dive.
Yeah, it has.
I've learned a lot, and I hope our listeners have too.
Me too.
So thanks for joining us, and keep exploring. We'll see you next time.